Hello. To start off with terrain stuff this time around. Alright, so terrain manager is basically the same as every other manager. Here it is. Here's a setup for it. Here are its internals. Just creates a terrain. My terrains are not drawables anymore, which we will see in the terrain model itself. In fact, let's take a look at that. It's also my new graphics object, which I'll be talking about in a bit. And it's obviously collidable because it does collide. Although technically, now that I think about it, that doesn't need to be there. Not necessarily. That is to say, the collision will still be called as long as there is an active terrain. So it does not necessarily need to be considered a collidable, since it doesn't need to be added to a group as per the normal methods. Terrain generation is the same, except it doesn't request drawing anymore. Detect location is still available for anybody who wants to know their exact location on the current terrain. It's obviously no longer in use for, and this is for rendering all of the visualizers. No longer in use for the collision. Speaking of which, my collision is pretty much unchanged. I wasn't able to get the iterator working, unfortunately. So I'll need to do that. I'll need to fix that. I'm doing it the other way, where the thing still knows that it's a terrain, and it knows that it's a grid. It's taking liberties with its existence right now, which it shouldn't. Here is where the custom collision is called for the terrain. Onto my research project. As I demoed earlier, I have quite a bit to show for it this time around. Start off, we have the graphics object circle, my personal graphics object. Same creation as a graphics object texture, not texture light. And that is very important, as we will see in a moment. Has all the other trappings of a graphics object. Now here's where it gets neat. So down here, yeah, all this is the same, all this is the same. Here, however, things get interesting. So it does the normal stuff, gets the information, but then, now, it calls this Scene Manager Calculate Light. Pay no attention to this. This will be removed shortly because I was having trouble getting things to appear, not realizing that I was feeding it the wrong data. As it turns out, if you feed it the wrong data, that is to say, don't fill out some data, it'll get angry, or rather, won't render like anything. It's just a black void, very ugly. And I thought the shader object was the problem. It's not. I can use the shader manager to just call it, and it'll do the exact same thing. So I'll fix that. Anyways, so calculate light calls this calculate light. This calls the current scene's set light, and set light calls the light manager to process elements. So this was something else before. I've repurposed it into this process elements. So what this does is it tells every light object to submit data. And so light object now has this submit data thing. And so here's the example, the best example I have at the moment, which is the point light. So this is a point light. It's derived from light. And what it does is this. Came up with a way to dynamically switch which point in a array, which the array exists in the shader. So here, where is it? Here it is. So there are 4 lights. The scene, which this instance is the intro scene, is 4 lights. And there they are. You add the light, you give it a position, you give it a color, you give it a, I just use the same because I was feeling a little lazy. Give it an ambient, diffuse, a specular, and then these are the range datas. I used a different sort of math to do the, I used a different sort of math to generate the spotlight. So those are the constant, the linear, and the quadratic. But, what was I saying? But yeah, so this thing will loop through and it'll change it. It'll give it the right thing. Get the right location. So, we'll demo that real quick. So the buffer right now says it's looking at point 0, point 1, point 2, point 3. Yep, so on and so forth. Oh, that actually reminds me, something that I should probably show off to you real quick. Like. Terrain Manager, delete at the end, deletes itself, which deletes the entire list of things. So it does, so the Terrain Manager is getting deleted. Oh, shoot. This is taking a while. So, better demo real quick. Okay, bam, look at that. It's all light and stuff. Here's the train again. Woo, look at that. Alright. That's all I have for this week. See you tomorrow.